Blackbeard does not have the soul of Rox D. Zebek in him. Let's talk about why that is. So now that Rox D. Zebek has made his official entrance into the story of One Piece, a lot of people have been bringing back this old One Piece theory that was around ever since Blackbeard first got introduced into the story, and that being that Blackbeard has multiple souls inside of him, one of those being Rox D. Zebek. Now, while I completely understand where people are coming from with this theory, it actually goes against what the story of One Piece is about. What I mean by that is that One Piece has always been about inherited will and the new generation getting rid of the old status quo and ushering a new era. We've seen this countless times in the story where we see Luffy go from island to island, liberating the people and getting rid of the old rule and establishing a new era of peace and freedom for the people there. Now, by that definition, Blackbeard would absolutely fit into that because he has the soul of an older villain trying to establish their old rule, and Luffy has to once again overcome that obstacle. However, Blackbeard's character was not written to be in opposition to Luffy that way. Luffy and Blackbeard are written to be parallel characters, which means they're going down the same destination of freedom. It's just that Blackbeard's path leads him down the road to darkness, and Luffy's path leads him down to the road to the dawn. Now, the reason why I say Blackbeard having Zebek's soul inside him secretly this entire time goes against the story of One Piece is because it would undercut Blackbeard's agency as a character. This would take away all of Blackbeard's agency and free will as a character and make him nothing more than a puppet for Rox D. Zebek. And that would inadvertently ruin his dynamic with Luffy because these are supposed to be two fundamentally different characters who just have similar ideals. And this is shown to us perfectly in their first interaction where Blackbeard and Luffy are at the bar and they have completely opposite opinions on the pie and the drink, where Blackbeard liked the pie and Luffy hated it, and Blackbeard hated the drink and Luffy loved it. Once you throw Rox D. Zebek into that, it no longer becomes a story about different dynamics about freedom and liberation and what it means to be the warrior of liberation that the story has been painting for us recently, and it now becomes a story about just people being reincarnated, which we've seen how that goes in stories like Naruto, because then it wouldn't be any different than Luffy being the actual son of Roger or him being the reincarnation of Joy Boy directly, because then Luffy would no longer be his own individual character. That's why when Gear 5 got revealed, Oda went out of his way to make sure that Luffy introduced himself as Monkey D. Luffy, the man who wants to be Pirate King, not Joy Boy, the warrior of liberation from 800 years ago. Because when the story first introduced Gear 5, I remember that 1 week break we had, the entire community was depending on Oda to give us a satisfying answer for Gear 5, and a lot of people did not want Luffy to be the child of prophecy, or he didn't want to be the secret reincarnation of Joy Boy. A lot of people were wondering if that was going to happen, is that when Gear 5 got revealed, that it was going to be secretly Joy Boy's personality fighting through Luffy, and it turned out that wasn't the case. It's just that they had the same power set. So if Blackbeard ended up being the exact same person as Rox D. Zebek secretly, then their entire relationship dynamic would get ruined behind that. Another part of the theory is looking at Blackbeard's flagship, where it has 3 skulls on it, so that should mean 3 captains. This one always gets swapped around interchangeably. They're like, oh, it's going to be because Blackbeard has 3 devil fruits by the end of the series, and then, oh, he has 3 personalities inside of him. So if he had Rox D. Zebek inside of him, who's the third one now? Is it Davy Jones? And so how far are we going back to these things about reincarnation and what actually ends up being a character's own will? Because who is the person who inspired Davy Jones? Who was the person that gave Davy Jones's will that passed it on to Zebek? It just becomes too complicated for the story that is not being told here, and that's why I just don't think that Blackbeard has any souls inside of him. Now, I don't know why Blackbeard doesn't sleep, That has to be explained to us some sort of way in the story, but I don't think it has anything to do with Rox D. Zebek. What I actually think is that Rox is just the person who inspired Blackbeard, but Blackbeard isn't even copying Rox directly. He doesn't use a sword, and as far as we know, Rox D. Zebek did not have the Yami Yami fruit, at least at the point in the story that we're seeing right now. Another reason why I feel like Blackbeard doesn't have the soul of Rox in him is because it would make the battle between him and Ace that more impactful, because when you look back at it, that was actually the son of Roger and the son of Zebek going at each other. Now, before we knew that, it was this amazing parallel of the sun versus darkness, and then darkness actually winning, which connects back to the whole story about the ancient kingdom and the world government taking over, and how the light lost at that point, and now we're in an era of darkness waiting for the dawn, which Luffy's gonna bring the dawn and actually beat them out this time. But if you were to take that away and it would just be Rox beating up Roger's son, it kind of would seem a bit unfair, and it wouldn't have as impactful as a parallel. So having Blackbeard have the soul of Rox in him, or even multiple souls from like evil villains of the past, would undercut the story in so many different ways that I just can't see Oda going for that. I genuinely think it's always going to be about inherited will and people following after. It's the same reason why Luffy doesn't have a sword like Roger did. Even Nika himself and Joy Boy is seen wielding a shield and a sword, sometimes even a spear. While Luffy does have an interest in weapons like he did in Wano, and he carries an axe around his back in Elbaf, I don't think we're ever going to get to a point in the story where Luffy's going to be wielding a sword and a shield. So it's not about being a direct copy of the people that's inspiring you. It's about following their path of what that means. Rox wanted to follow a path of darkness, and that's what Blackbeard's following. Roger wanted to follow a path that would have brought the dawn, and Luffy's following that path as well. So yeah, I don't think that Blackbeard has the soul of Rox inside of him. But you know, if you have any stronger evidence to go against that, let me know in the comments. And thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time.